this is how you well, this is what I removed as the radiator, the whole assembly, but you don't really have to do it. You can keep the whole nose assembled. What you have to do is, before you drop it, you have to disconnect this hose, disconnect this hose, and then you have two AC lines that go here on top of the radiator. You disconnect them both. They go like this. So you disconnect them, and then what's very important is the this wire right here. This one is a positive. So you disconnect that from the top, because it goes around here into this right here. So you can either disconnect from the back, and that's it. You don't have to do it here, or you can just kind of go along and disconnect it from here. This is simple, you know this part. This is just all the computer wires. The fuel lines, this is a simple one. It snaps off. This one, you just have to pop this open and then get a tool to push it in. When you put the tool to push in, you gotta push it in like this inside and then slide it out. Remember, very important, this right here. Take this off from here and then disconnect it from here, because it will rip. And then don't forget, the most important is the steering rod from the steering wheel. From the bottom there's a bolt, so disconnect that and kind of push the steering rod up from the suspension. Now on this side, important, right here, these two bolts, you gotta take them off and kind of put this to the side here. So that's very important. Of course, the transmission lines, you have to disconnect them from the radiator, because they are they go down with the subframe that's over here. You can unscrew this so the subframe goes down, and these air lines, you can just disconnect them from the subframe, so when the subframe drops, this stays. Now this right here is the AC line. It's easier to disconnect it from here where this bolt is. So disconnect it, and that's it. That way the engine is free at this point. And the most important is over here, you have this one. You pop this open, there's a screw here, you take this off and you pop this cover open. There's 3 bolts. You take the fuse box out and take the plug out and put it on top of the engine like you did over here. And then as for suspension, you take these bolts off here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 bolts. The brakes, so if you don't want to bleed, just take the brake caliper off and you can hang it here. But since I'm taking it off completely, I just disconnected the brake line. And then all this stuff, the sensor that's here, so you disconnect that too. That's important. If you have that, yeah, you should have that. I think your car has air suspension. If it's not, then don't worry about it. And then the subframe goes here, 1 bolt, here 1 bolt on top, and 1 over here bolt. So that's the same thing for both sides. And this drops as a whole thing down with the subframe. So you literally drop in the whole thing off like this. Just goes. I haven't disconnected the line here yet, but the whole thing just drops down. On the bottom, in the back, on the back of a transmission, there's 4 bolts to take the bracket off, and you got to remove the whole bracket to unscrew the bolts from the drive shaft, the one in the middle, to unscrew the drive shaft. And the bracket, I don't see where I put the bracket. I thought I put it here, but anyway, the bracket you have to completely remove so you can access it. And the right here, you take these off. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what I was talking about. This thing right here. There was a bracket here that I took off that bolts onto the here. So you have to remove the bracket to take the bolts off. Okay. In order to spin this to take the bolts around, you have to have the back lifted off the ground so you can spin the tires, and you can put it neutral either on top or here at the bottom. And that's pretty much it. It's easier to take it off here, but my guy took it off here, so I like to take him off here in the back, just because all the wiring for the sensor stays. And then you just put a couple of jacks. You put one over there, put a piece of wood, and put another piece of wood, another jack here, and just slowly drop it down little by little, just to see you're not hurting anything. But it's really simple. This is the main frame bolts. I usually take this one and the very first one, and keep the middle ones, so that way I can control. I take the gun and it started unscrewing little there, little there, and then the whole thing literally shifts down. This is simple right here. Like I say, take it off. Once you start dropping, this will disconnect. You might have to use a little pro bar to kind of help it to disconnect, because it just sits here. So as the mufflers, you might have to use a little pro bar here once you drop it to kind of let this go freely. So, but it's fairly simple, it really is. There's not much to it. I think I did more explanation than actual work, but you know, this is important right here. This piece, you have to disconnect this plug. It just pulls out like this way, and you disconnect the plug. If you don't, you're gonna rip this ABS wire. You can take this plastic off if it's in the way, but it really shouldn't give you any problems. The air lines, you just disconnect them from the top. It's 11, you just keep unscrewing it and done. I don't know what else to tell you. It's actually simple, really is. If you're just gonna keep the front end together, then like I said, these two hoses and the AC lines, and then just slowly drop the whole thing. So if you want to, you can pull out the fan, but if you pull out the fan, it plugs in here, right in here. That's where your fan plugs in. So you would take the plug off the fan, and you can pull the fan out so you have some room to work here. But important, don't forget this, because this will hold your engine up right here. This little thing here. There's one like this behind the transmission too. Since it's already taken off, I can't show it to you, but it's this, and you have to let this wire either unscrew it from here, follow it, and unscrew it. Yeah, that would be the easiest. You take it out from here, unscrew one bolt here and a little bolt here because of this wire, and you can just drop it with the wire. You either have to, or you can just do it from here and take the wire off from the frame. So that's the two options, but this is it. So